Imagine a chilling silence, broken only by the faint muffled sounds of desperation from behind a bolted steel door. A Russian scientist, clipboard in hand, expects to find his human test subjects. He anticipates success, perhaps a few minor complaints. But as the door creaks open, a different reality screams into existence. He's plunged into an abyss of chaos, a cacophony of anguished cries, and a scene of utter savagery. Before his disbelieving eyes lies a gruesome tableau, a body utterly decimated, organs spilled as if some unspeakable entity had feasted. The surviving participants. They are barely recognizable, their bodies marred by horrifying injuries, flesh torn from limbs, finger bones, exposed faces stripped bare. By all that is holy, the researcher gasps internally, his mind reeling. What twisted hell has unfolded here? He scribbles frantically on his pad, thoughts racing. This wasn't precisely the outcome we envisioned for this experiment. Sure, the rations were basic, the beds perhaps less than plush. But this level of sheer carnage over a few nights of missed sleep. This is hardly comradely behavior. This horrifying vision straight out of a nightmare is the infamous Russian sleep experiment. But did this truly happen, or is it a chilling fabrication? Let's journey to the inception of this tale, and then our team of dedicated investigators will unveil the real facts behind this supposed horrific experiment. Picture this. It's the tumultuous late 1940s. Soviet Union scientists, driven by a desire for military advantage during the height of the Cold War, developed a potent stimulant. Their objective A, substance capable of keeping individuals alert and awake for extended periods, a definite strategic asset in prolonged conflicts. During the harrowing years of World War II, other nations had similar developments. The German military, for instance, relied on their own version of such a stimulant, a powerful methamphetamine they called Pervitin. Across the lines, American and British forces supplied their soldiers with benzedrine, an amphetamine often likened to common street speed for its wakefulness-promoting effects. However, the Soviets aimed to surpass these, seeking a novel drug that wouldn't induce a complete physical and mental collapse after merely a 3-day prolonged usage. They believed they had engineered something truly revolutionary, but first it required rigorous human testing. Securing test subjects posed little challenge in the 1940s, as wartime left a grim abundance of prisoners of war. For these individuals, the ethical boundaries typically upheld in scientific research were conveniently disregarded. The experiment commenced with an especially prepared testing chamber, designed to house 5 chosen subjects. This was a hermetically sealed environment, meticulously engineered to allow researchers to administer the stimulant in a gaseous state, while simultaneously monitoring critical oxygen levels. Inside, the subjects were provided with basic dried food, individual cotangent-like beds devoid of any comfortable bedding, and essential running water with a toilet. Every sound was scrutinized through a network of microphones, and constant visual surveillance was maintained via discrete cameras. The only connection to the outside world was several 5-inch thick glass porthole windows, offering merely dim, indistinct glimpses of shadows rather than clear views. With the stage now meticulously prepared, the first 3 days passed with the 5 men appearing remarkably cheerful and alert. The stimulant gas was performing its intended function perfectly, much to the satisfaction of the observing scientists. One researcher, feeling smug, remarked to a colleague, Nazi meth, "A mere trifle, just wait until the world bears witness to our creation. Comrade Stalin himself will be immensely gratified." The subjects eager for release had willingly committed to remaining awake for 30 days under the deceptive promise of freedom, should they endure the entire period. This seemed like a reasonable bargain to them. However, the mood within the chamber began to sour dramatically around the 4-day mark. The subjects, once jovial, started to share unsettling recollections of wartime atrocities and the deep-seated horrors they had personally encountered. They recounted harrowing traumas, persistent nightmares, and other unspeakable visions from their past. By day 5, the situation deteriorated further. The men displayed clear symptoms of psychosis, engaging in frantic monologues and conversing with invisible entities. Their mutual suspicion escalated into rampant paranoia, prompting them to whisper sinister tales about each other directly into the microphones. The researchers, well versed in the effects of severe sleep deprivation, understood that after 5 continuous days without rest, the human mind can begin to turn against itself, manifesting vivid and terrifying hallucinations. Yet a crucial question loomed. Was this psychological unraveling a consequence of profound sleep loss, or was the gas itself inducing these disturbing effects? The hypothesis regarding the gas's direct impact gained stronger traction by day 9. It was then that one of the subjects erupted into guttural screams, howling like a tormented spirit as he frantically paced the confines of the room. His cries were so violent that he appeared to rupture his own vocal cords, as within a few hours his screams devolved into a faint childlike squeak. Several more days crept by ushering in an unsettling absolute silence within the chamber. The men had vanished from the camera's view. Despite this, instrument readings confirmed that 5 individuals were still breathing, indicating they were unequivocally alive. But where had they gone? The researchers, reluctant to disrupt the ongoing experiment, ultimately concluded they had no other recourse. Via the intercom, a clear command was issued: "We are opening the chamber to perform microphone checks. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Comply, and one of you will be granted immediate freedom." A single chilling voice responded: "We no longer wish to be set free." Perplexed, the scientists grappled with this unexpected turn. Had the gas induced some extreme form of addiction? What in the world? One Russian researcher muttered. These individuals are profoundly addicted. Realizing the gravity of the situation, they initiated the ventilation system, flushing out the remaining stimulant gas with fresh air. However, what echoed through the speakers next was not gratitude, but renewed screams from the men, desperately begging for more times of the potent damn fine gas. On day 15, with bated breath, they finally unsealed the chamber doors. The scene was beyond horrific. One man lay lifeless amidst the carnage. As depicted in our chilling introduction, the scene upon opening the chamber was utterly grotesque. A dead man lay amidst the horror, and the survivors were severely wounded. Upon closer scrutiny, the attending scientists observed that the injuries on the living subjects were alarmingly severe and appeared to be self-inflicted. They had shockingly torn away skin and muscle from their own chests, revealing the horrifying spectacle of their internal lungs. It was as if each man had performed a macabre self-inflicted surgery. Even functioning blood vessels had been brutally removed. Astonishingly, other internal organs were meticulously arranged on the floor, resembling a morbid piece of anatomical art. And in a stomach-churning twist, the men were actively consuming these detached body parts, seemingly with macabre enthusiasm. Overwhelmed by the unspeakable horror, the researchers immediately summoned military backup, too terrified to approach the wretched men. They quickly resealed the door, muffling the agonizing howls of the subjects clamoring for the return of the stimulant gas. When soldiers eventually arrived to extract the men, the process was far from straightforward, proving to be brutally violent. One subject viciously tore out a soldier's throat, while another dismembered a second soldier. In total, 5 soldiers perished during the violent extraction, and tragically, some of the traumatized victims later ended their own lives following the event. Once the subjects were finally subdued, medical personnel administered a dose of morphine potent enough to tranquilize a Canadian moose. Yet the men continued to thrash and struggle with the ferocity of cornered wild beasts. One subject, already severely injured, bled out entirely, his heart ceasing to beat. Incredibly, even after death, he continued to vocalize his fading cries, echoing the desperate plea: "Give me gas, I need gas." During this grim struggle, one doctor sustained several broken bones. The 3 remaining subjects were eventually subdued, securely strapped to gurneys, and transported to a high-security medical facility. The surviving researchers conversed, their voices laced with disbelief. "That wasn't supposed to happen, was it?" one murmured. Reluctantly, they conceded that perhaps the Nazis, the British, and the Americans, with their less potent but effective crank, had opted for a more humane approach during wartime. Surgeons at the facility immediately began the horrific task of reinserting the missing organs and visceral fragments back into one of the men. Despite the intense sedatives, this particular subject nearly tore free from his restraints. When the medical team finally managed to administer an effective anesthetic, the man's heart abruptly stopped and he died on the operating table. The subsequent autopsy revealed a staggering 9 broken bones and extensive muscle tears across his entire body. Deciding that 2 deaths were sufficient, the doctors opted against using anesthetic for the next subject. They meticulously patched him up, suturing his ruptured organs and applying skin grafts to his ravaged body. The lead surgeon, despite the horrific circumstances, expressed a strange admiration for the man's impossible survival. A nurse observing the procedure noted with unease that the beast had been smiling at her throughout. She found herself pondering the resilience of male carnal instincts, even in the most dire situations, briefly philosophizing on a primal drive for creation in the face of death, before quickly snapping back to the grim reality of the surgery. Suddenly, the man began to emit a strained wheezing sound as if attempting to speak. The quick-thinking nurse offered him a pen and a pad. With a shaky hand, the man scrawled a chilling command: "Keep cutting." The nurse internally recoiled, thinking, what a madman, relieved she hadn't reciprocated his earlier flirty glances. The last remaining subject, during his own bodily reconstruction, reportedly cackled maniacally like a hyena. He repeatedly demanded the gas, the good stuff, and when questioned why, he simply insisted he needed it to stay awake. The surgeon mused grimly that these men, if not so consumed by self-cannibalism, might have made exceptional night shift custodians or even security guards. Yet he understood their unpredictable psychotic state made them utterly untrustworthy, even for simple tasks like washing their hands. Then a former KGB agent possessing a clarity that had evaded everyone else proposed a truly disturbing solution: reinstate the gas. He reasoned, it seems the problems truly begin during withdrawal. While under the influence, they're relatively manageable, albeit a bit hyper and paranoid. We can work with that. Once re-exposed to the gas, the remaining subjects indeed settled down, appearing lucid and functional again. However, this calm was short-lived. The electroencephalogram EEG monitor suddenly displayed erratic, furious brain activity, which then abruptly flatlined. This man too finally succumbed. His final dose of the stimulant, or perhaps the sheer trauma, had at last claimed him. The very last subject eventually found himself back in the original study room, accompanied by the body of the other deceased man. 3 researchers were also present. Without warning, one of the researchers drew a weapon, shooting the supervising commander, then turning the gun on the surviving subject. He then screamed, his voice raw with terror and disgust. "I refuse to be locked in here with these times. Not with you. What are you, I demand to know?" The wounded subject, clearly still alive despite the gunshot, responded with a chilling, knowing smile. "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the primal madness that lies dormant within all of you, constantly yearning to break free. We are what you desperately conceal within the depths of your minds each night. We are what you attempt to silence and paralyze when you seek refuge in sleep, a realm where we cannot tread." In a final desperate act, the researcher fired a bullet into the man's chest. It was a clear violation of the Hippocratic Oath, but in those harsh, unimaginable circumstances, desperate measures were deemed necessary. And with that, the experiment reached its gruesome conclusion. It's genuinely fascinating how many people genuinely believe this tale to be a factual account. However, even without extensive deep diving, a casual reading of this sensational flash fiction quickly reveals glaring flaws in its narrative and basic grammar. Beyond merely poor writing, the storyline itself frequently defies logic. Characters repeatedly die, only to inexplicably return to life, a clear indication that the author may have simply forgotten previous plot points. Furthermore, one section claims oxygen levels confirm the men were alive, yet the very next sentence suggests researchers were uncertain if they had all perished. But these are just minor inconsistencies compared to the monumental absurdities that truly give the story away. For instance, we scarcely need to explain that a human cannot survive ripping out their vital organs and then arranging them on a floor like textbooks. That scenario is pure, unadulterated fiction. Any individual sustaining such injuries would instantly succumb to catastrophic blood loss or traumatic shock. It's crucial to remember that in the story, the men were discovered in this state and allegedly left for an extended period before military intervention. You might argue, but the gas was responsible. This was a secret experiment gone horribly wrong. Yet even under the influence of the most potent illicit substances, humans cannot routinely resurrect from the dead, mutilate their own bodies with such precision, or engage in flirtatious banter while in extremis. There has never been a documented gas capable of keeping a person awake for 15 days, let alone transforming them into a self-loathing zombie. The actual world record for voluntary wakefulness is 11 days and 25 minutes, set by Randy Gardner in 1964 without stimulants. And he experienced paranoia and hallucinations, but no self-mutilation. Crucially, no credible historical record of this experiment exists outside of a particular website, infamous for its scary times, fictional times, tales. Let me re-emphasize times fictional times tales. It would be utterly astonishing if a single author writing from a bedroom possessed access to more classified information than the combined intelligence agencies of the CIA and the British Secret Services. As for the use of stimulants in warfare, as we touched upon earlier, and perhaps embellished for dramatic effect in the story, soldiers on all sides of World War II did indeed utilize various amphetamines to prolong wakefulness. Officers distributed these substances like commonplace candy. However, even the most devoted user of ice methamphetamine could not stay awake for 15 continuous days. Historically, soldiers given such stimulants typically remained alert for only 24 to a maximum of 36 hours before suffering severe cognitive and physical impairment. The Pentagon's own research has shown that forcing individuals to stay awake for more than 48 hours renders them significantly impaired, slow, and largely ineffective as combatants prone to making critical mistakes in environment demanding constant vigilance. While amphetamines aided the Germans in their rapid blitzkrieg tactics, these drugs were administered with strict protocols and awareness of their limits. Given this, it's highly improbable that Soviet researchers would have even conceived, let alone attempted, such a recklessly dangerous experiment. Furthermore, medical science offers no support for the story's fantastical claims. While a rare condition called Morvan syndrome can indeed cause severe delirium and profound insomnia, leading sufferers into a dreamlike state characterized by prolonged wakefulness and vivid hallucinations, it does not involve self-cannibalism. These individuals experience what are known as microsleeps, brief involuntary episodes of sleep that prevent complete collapse. Similarly, fatal familial insomnia is a genetic disorder causing progressive sleeplessness, hallucinations, and dementia, but it is inherited through genes not induced by environmental agents, and again, absolutely does not lead to a desire for self-mutilation or cannibalism. In essence, there is no scientific or historical precedent on Earth that aligns with the events described in the Russian sleep experiment. If such a groundbreaking and horrifying discovery were ever made, we would undoubtedly find it thoroughly documented in peer-reviewed medical journals, not circulating as an internet meme. Now, we often get asked in the comments how we manage to produce so many episodes each day. Perhaps, just perhaps, the entire staff of our channel are crank-addicted zombies with an insatiable hunger for human flesh. Of course, that's utterly preposterous. Or is it exactly what a team of crank-addicted zombies with an insatiable lust for human flesh would want you to believe? The Russian sleep experiment is undeniably a compelling piece of horror fiction, though its narrative could certainly be more consistent and grounded. Sleep deprivation in reality is a recognized form of torture used by militaries worldwide, capable of driving individuals to the brink of madness. However, when you factor in the addictive gas, the organ art, and the reanimation, the story utterly loses its grip on plausibility. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content, and tell us in the comments below.